is another perfect day. No matter how your day has gone thus far, it is perfect. Whether it has been a bad day or a good day, all that has occurred within the span of meaning brought about by your every choice, leading up until this very moment at which you are watching me, listening to me on this video. There's an ancient Chinese tale that I like to share sometime that's told many different ways, but the meaning is the same. This is how I tell it. There was a farmer walking down the street one day when he saw a beautiful stallion without an owner close by. He took the stallion by its lead and started taking it home. All the villagers saw the farmer with this beautiful stallion, and they gathered round following him until he reached his farm. There the villagers all started exclaiming, "Oh, what a wonderful horse! What a wonderful day! You're so lucky!" Well, the farmer looked at the villagers, shrugged his shoulders, and said, we'll see. The next day, the farmer's son, a strapping young teen, saw the horse and decided he was going to take it for a ride. And so he got on the horse's back, pranced out into the street, and immediately the horse started bucking, throwing the boy to the ground, where he broke his leg. The villagers, hearing the commotion, gathered round and began exclaiming again as the farmer came out, "Oh, what an unlucky day it is today! That terrible horse that you found yesterday has caused your son to break his leg. Such a terrible event. You're such an unlucky man." Well, the farmer looked at the villagers, shrugged his shoulders, and said, we'll see. Well, about a week later, the emperor's soldiers came into town conscripting young men to fight in a new war. They took every young man in the village except for the farmer's son, who was laid up with his broken leg. The villagers, in consternation, gathered round yet again, this time lambasting the farmer. "Oh, wow, look at you, your son. He got saved because he got his leg broken. What a lucky man you are from such an unlucky event." The farmer looked at each of his neighbors in turn, shrugged his shoulders, and you know what he said then. "We'll see." I suppose the point of this story is clear in that life is comprised of ups and downs. Every day, every stage of our journey, we experience events that we have no idea of the outcome. Things happen to us and we respond to them. We respond to them based upon how we interpret those events. We interpret those events generally in the context of our lives, our experiences. If our experiences have been generally negative, it's often the case that we see life negatively and we interpret the things that happen to us first in a negative light. If our life has been, on a whole, generally positive, then we do the same. Everything that happens to us, we can see them in a positive light and we interpret those events in that manner. I guess you can see this as a glass half empty, glass half full type of perception. And it's often dependent upon the experience that we've gone through and the things that have happened to us. One thing I often ask people after I've known them for a little bit, when I want to get to know them a little bit deeper, is what is your first memory in life? This is kind of a deep question. I want y'all to take a few moments and to think about it right now and see if you can find your very first memory. How's that going for you? Were you able to go back? Many of you, as you're sitting there trying to get to your very first memory, you're finding that it's a little bit difficult, isn't it? You're thinking about things that happened to you, and they seem to occur pretty early in life, maybe when you were 7, maybe when you were 5. For some of you, you may go back even further, maybe when you were like 4. And for those of you few souls, maybe when you were about 3 or so. For me, my very first memory goes back to when I was about 2 years old. I remember it because it was before my sister was born. We were living in Bangor, Maine. All I remember about this memory is laying in high grass. It had to be a spring day. It felt like it was maybe late in the morning. I was laying on my back, staring straight up at a perfectly blue sky. It was cool outside because I had a parka on. You remember those parkas that had the fur around the hood? Well, I could see the fur around the hood, and it was being blown slightly by the breeze, and I could hear the whisper of the breeze as it blew through that fur, but also as it blew through the grass. And I could see a few strands of grass around the outside of the fur. But as I was looking up into that sky, all I remember of that moment is that I felt totally at peace and at one with the world. I felt as if I were a part of everything. I felt the existence of the world as an extension of me. And in that moment, I knew that I was me, that I was present, that I was human, that I existed. This is the understanding that is encompassed by the idea of logos. The I am that I am. The fundamental formulation of consciousness as pervasive throughout material and immaterial being. There exists omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotence, which correspond to thought, word, and action. Omnipresent refers to the fundamental mode of being, what the Egyptians called Amenta, the creative void, what science now calls the 0-point field. This is the pervading sea of never-ending consciousness that underlies all of existence. This corresponds to thought, which is an emanation of this ever-present and all-pervasive sea of fundamental consciousness. Then there is the idea of omniscience, which refers to all-knowing. This corresponds to the idea of logos, which is the word, which is the emanations of the mouth. Power, emanating from that all-pervading sea of consciousness, from the thought underlying the word, the power comes next, which of course refers to omnipotence, or in the material world, what we would call action and material beingness. What we do in order to manifest thought is speak it into existence, and then we act and create. Creation is what life is all about, and this is something that will underlie everything that we do and say and seek to manifest together as we move forward, because we're all involved in this co-creation around us every single day. Every thought that we think occurs within a sea of thoughts, and I'm not referring to the archontic thoughts that we've been talking about in recent conversations, those external thoughts coming from the foreign installation that actually pervade upon our peace. I'm talking about the original conceptions, the original thoughts that arise from that sea of beingness beneath us, that are properties of the observer quality, which is what lies behind and beneath all thought. That perfect peace that exists in your mind, that if you're quiet enough, if you're still enough, you can catch a glimpse of sometimes. Sometimes it is possible also to still the flow of thought. The archontic voice will quiet, and nothing arises. The cascade of noise can still, and in that moment the observer is clear to be seen as your fundamental and truest expression of self. We can sit in this silence and just be. And in a perfect form of meditation, this is one aspect that is mandatory to cultivate. But it is not an aspect that comes easily. nor is it an aspect that comes through seeking, which is often the contradiction of the enlightenment process. We seek and yet can find nothing because what we seek is already what we are. Well then, what must we do? We must drop all pretense, all external identification with the modes of being, which include thought, word, action, history, the future. None of it is existent. All that exists is the now. This moment, right here, right now. And consciousness, that from which we arrive. It's a beautiful thought. You can find many practitioners of the esoteric arts out there online talking about it. I don't really want to get into it at that level very deeply because I prefer to share in a different way, to pick different topics and share them, but it is important for me to communicate that the ancient wisdom is the modern wisdom, and that some things remain true no matter when or where they're spoken, which was the message on yesterday. So the day progresses and we travel through our days, and all is perfect. All remains perfect because the observer is always watching. The emotions, they rise. The emotions, they fall. And we release them, or we should release them. Many of us don't. A lot of us store them in a reservoir of ill will or goodwill. Either way, you are creating karma. You are storing impressions that you can call on in future nows, often to the detriment of the moment. As we interpret things through the lens of past experiences, we limit the possibilities. And at this point in time, limiting the possibilities is the last thing that we should be doing. Because in this new earth, unlimited possibility is the way in which we will move forward and create a new reality for this world that is not based upon the failed experiments of the past. The failed realities of manifest thought, word, and action. Granted, we are cycling through experience. But here at the end of the age and the beginning of the new age, the age of Aquarius, we have an opportunity to cycle higher, to take the turn upwards in this new spiraling beginning period where anything is possible. We are here currently to make sure that this happens. This is what we were born to do. This is what we are here for, what we are incarnate for in this moment. To work at the individual and the collective level as souls of light, warriors of light, scions of light, in order to manifest this new earth. So remembering the underlying perfection of this world, of everything that happens to us, for us, against us, as we traverse this earth, is mandatory. Even if we lose it in the moment, even if we are carried away by emotions, by happiness, by joy, by sadness, by pain, by anger, no matter what, it's important to always come back to center. By allowing the emotions to run their course, you release them. As long as you don't attempt to reserve them in that little area in the dark corners of the mind where we hold the things that have pained us, that have hurt us in the past. As long as we can let that go, it's possible to move into each new day, cognizant of the fact that we have infinite possibilities ahead of us. It's possible to move into each new moment that way. although most people never realize this level of consciousness because it requires a presence, a sense of beingness in the moment that is reserved for the silent sages, those who live every moment awake and aware, who are the observer, who have rarefied their personality complex to the extent that they no longer reflect the human shell which they began life as. They burn the dross away on the crucible of the eternal, the infinite, and they have become what we all are at heart, at soul. We are manifest shards of consciousness, each of us an expression of the infinite and the eternal in living motion, interacting with ourselves through others, manifesting eternally, life after life, experience after experience, time after time. Peace!